ignorance of law is not an excuse. If I don't have anything in place, most of my assets are going to go to unclaimed property. I don't want clients to deal with rejection or RFEs. Welcome. On this show, with every episode, we explore the people who are building the foundation of our community. And there is perhaps no foundation stronger than the law. Today, joining with us is a dual qualified attorney who specializes in vital areas that keep our community running, like estate planning, business law, and immigration. Today's conversation will be about how her work contributes directly to the success and stability of our community. Sulbha Sankhla, thank you very much for joining with me on my show. Thank you for inviting me. Absolutely. Ms. Sankhla, let's start with the first question. When most people look at what you do, they see endless paperwork, visa forms, and contracts. But for families sitting across from you, those papers represent safety, legacy, or future in this country. So when you sign a document that secures a family's stay in this country, or do you feel like you've finished a legal task, or do you feel that you have actually changed the course of their history in this country? Yeah, thank you for asking that question, because most of the times people are like, lawyers are just doing legal work and, there's no human connection. And for me, like, I'm a third generation lawyer. So my grandfather was a lawyer, my father was a lawyer, and, I'm here. So whenever I'm working with a client, for me, the most important thing is understanding where they're coming from, trying to build that relationship right there so that there's more comfort and there's more credibility to the advice they're seeking. And we do forms, those are the requirements, but there is a more human approach to it. There's a more interaction to it. There's more input. There's more education into why we are doing this. An example would be if you're filing for naturalization. Most of the people are like, okay, so then we just need to take all these oaths and, we got green card, so now we are eligible. So just helping that understand that rules are changing. These are the new parameters you need to meet, how the application needs to be filled, because sometimes people think citation is not even important to fill in. And we have to tell, no, if you got cited, you have to put it in the application, because if you don't disclose it, that means you're hiding it. And they're like, no, but it got deferred and everything. Is like, yeah, but they know it, right? They know it and they're asking you. So you have to answer. So for most of the times, for me, it's more like educating them to make an informed decision. And legal advice, that's what, right? Yeah. So, no, I'm sorry to cut you off there, but what I meant to ask is, are you also a counselor for their peace of mind? Because these visa forms, there comes a lot of waiting dates and there's fearing of rejections, right? So what is your role in this dynamic? So I always plan to prepare ahead. So we are not always working, okay, this is the bare minimum, this is the essential, we need to provide for it. We are always thinking of the second step and the third step. So most of the time when we are preparing applications, they're like, okay, these are the primary. Do you have supplemental? Let's submit the supplemental. Do you also have the third category to it, right? And most of the times people say, yes, maybe we can get it. Let's just do it. For me, creating a more comprehensive document at the first go is very important, because I don't want clients to deal with rejection or RFEs. I mean, it's natural. Sometimes we might not be able to get those secondary and, the complementary documents. But you said RFE, what is that? So RFE is a request for evidence. So sometimes when you provide information and it's not sufficient, then USCIS comes back with an RFE saying, we want more information to supplement this information. So we try to avoid that. For me, it's always important that the client gets into the real picture and they get into why we are doing this. So an example is, why are they asking for my date of birth certificate? But I don't have a date of birth certificate. I have a matriculation document. And most of the time in India, matriculation document is accepted, right? So then educating them, okay, do we have something else? Maybe an affidavit from your parents saying that, you are their natural born child, or an affidavit from your sibling saying, I know this person and this person has been like this. Or, taking your passport. Your passport would have your date of birth. Taking your Aadhaar card, so basically just helping them understand that what can we do? We understand you don't have date of birth certificate, but what can we do to supplement it? And why do we need multiple layers to supplement it? Because we don't have the primary. So for me, it's very important that they understand where I'm coming from, that they understand how this process works. So for me, it's like, okay, if they were filling on their own and they just came to me, guide me what I'm doing, I try to go from that level so that they understand what's going on. And they're my partner in this. And I'm not like bossing them over. We are working together because it's their immigration, it's their lives, right? If something goes wrong, they need to understand the risk they are taking by doing an incomplete application.
That is true. That is true. So you sit at this intersection of two very complex legal systems, right? US and India.
Yeah.
So when it comes to that, what is the biggest misconception that Indian immigrants have when they're transferring their lives to the US?
So, I think one thing which everybody needs to understand is India is common law, right? So our legal systems are similar. They're not very far off, but how they are implemented is a little different, right? And also it's important to understand that ignorance of law is not an excuse. Most of the times people say, oh, I didn't know. Yeah, doesn't matter. You should have known. If you're driving a car, you should know that you need to drive with a driver's license. You can't say, oh, I got a driver's license. That means I'm eligible to drive. Great.
And just don't carry it with me.
Yeah, just don't carry it. Or I have insurance. I just forgot to put the insurance card inside. And somebody stopped you and said, oh, you're not carrying sufficient insurance. That ignorance of not carrying it, but I have it, is not acceptable. I came in and I was told, oh, you're from India. You don't know the law. I was like, what are you talking about? We're common law people. We know our constitution is based on American and UK constitution, right? So we took the best of the both. And, how do we not know the law? So it took me it was my personal struggle to make people acknowledge that my 5 years of work experience in India and my law degree in India and my master's degree in UK means something. It's very important that people understand that the legal system is the same. But it's just how you practice it and how people acknowledge it is different. But then it's also important that nobody understands the cultural piece of it. Because law also have a great cultural impact, right? How I would do a citation here, how seriously I will take it versus how seriously I will take it in India is different, right?
Yeah.
So people need to understand that even though our laws are similar, but how they're implemented and what impact it can have
the
on
consequences
you
are different.
is like I'm telling you, if you have a citation, right, it can have impact on your naturalization. So you have to be clear, not only your green card, but your naturalization can be impacted if you were cited or you were multiple cited or you had a DUI. Everything can have your consequence in your journey in becoming a rightful citizen, if intended. Yeah.
That is amazing. Now I'm a little intimidated. Okay. So let's talk about, estate planning, which is another niche of yours, right? So in Indian culture, we tend to avoid that conversation about transferring assets or writing wills. We wait for perhaps the elderly in the family to be on their deathbed to have the conversation about it.
Yeah. But we have seen something like that happening and we're like, oh, it happened to a friend, so how can I avoid it?
Yeah, exactly. So how are you breaking that cultural taboo and reprogramming the Indians living in the US and asking them to transfer their wealth that they build here to the next generation?
So, I will start with my own personal example. It's very difficult. It's a difficult conversation to have with anybody. For me, it made sense when I was giving birth to my first child, because it was a high-risk pregnancy and I had to go through very difficult labor. And I was like, okay, what happened? If something happens to me, I die here, and something happens to my spouse, who will take care of our children? Because we are immigrants. None of our close families are here. And with that view, I started building something for myself. So I was like, okay, I want temporary guardians so that my best friend can take custody of my child till the time my family can come. I need to think about how my assets would be transferred, because nobody in India can come and do a will here because it's a lot of cost for them and they don't even understand how the whole process works. And I was like, I don't want anything to be lost because I tried to find myself in Washington State unclaimed property, and I found $250 worth of unclaimed property in my name while I'm still living because there was a mobile phone bill, which kind of we got a check to our previous house. We never cashed it, and they never sent it to the new address.
Okay.
So that money was sent to Washington State as unclaimed because that's the requirement that anytime you have any money for any of your customers, which is not claimed back, then it needs to go back to Washington State and somebody needs to claim it. And I was like, okay, if I don't have anything in place, most of my assets are going to go to unclaimed property.
No way.
And nobody knows. Right now, there are around $4 billion worth of unclaimed property with Washington State. And like, for me, it became like, okay, how do I educate people that something like this exists, right? Because it's not that's not how things happen back in our country. So
Yeah, because for us, if something happens to them, by default, it goes to the children, right?
But there's no default here. I mean, I've seen wills where people have disinherited their own biological children, right? So there's no default, right? So, and even if you have to do that, you need to write something. And when you write a will, that will needs to go through the court process, probate. And you have to then say, okay, I have people who are ready and willing to take it through the court process because will not automatically go anywhere. And there is no natural inheritance or Hindu inheritance or Indian Succession Act applicable here. So there is none of those factors which automatically applies in India are available here. So that means you need to pack that up yourself to prepare and protect your wealth. Because an example is if you're an H-1B and your spouse is H-4, as soon as the H-1B passes away, H-4 loses visa status, right? How long can you continue staying in the country on B-1, B-2? 6 months? Is 6 months enough to grieve, to see how your children are doing, pack up, move back, and also think about your inheritance? So we try to teach people that, we can create a revocable living trust. It's like a will, but instead of going through the court process, you register it with IRS. So you create a trust, you appoint somebody as a successor trustee, they will disburse all the assets without going to the court. So it was very important to give that education piece to people. And I was like, this kind of secures. If you're minor children, you need to have temporary guardianship. If you don't want to go through the court, you need to have the revocable living trust. And then we start thinking about asset protection from taxes. How do we defer taxes? So it's been a journey. We have been trying to educate more and more people. But I've also seen that there are a lot of tech people, they talk, right? And one person does it, they educate more people. So we've seen a lot of interest in estate planning since the last 3 years. More and more people are ready to talk about it. More and more people are genuinely worried about what would happen because their kids are US-born citizens. And if something happens, they might have to go back. How do they protect these assets for them so that, they have this wealth providing for their health, education, maintenance, and support while they're overseas, once they come back, once they continue their education. But yeah, it has been a journey. It was difficult conversation, but we were able to simplify it when we started talking about how the legal system works and, how it would impact if we don't plan clearly and, properly.
Okay, I know what conversation I'm going to have with my husband after this interview. I'm reconsidering everything I'm thinking right now. Okay, so another area that I wanted to talk to you about is your unique practice is also handling India law, right? But one thing about the NRIs and the OCIs, the non-residents Indians and the overseas citizens of India, they feel that once they are citizens in the US, the India law shields them and they are shielded by the India law. It doesn't touch them, right? What, according to you, from your experience of seeing a number of clients and, observing them, is the biggest blind spot that, NRIs or the OCI holders see or they don't know about? Is it the assets or the properties in India, or is that any area that we don't talk about much?
I think the biggest thing is the inheritance, right? Most of the times, if people have farmlands, people are inheriting commercial assets, people are real estate, right? Those are the assets which does not automatically, change when you change citizenship. So you have to be very careful because India law applies on those assets. And if you don't have OCI, most of the times you are in a big tax bracket because you're a foreigner. So like even having that understanding how important OCI is if you're going to inherit from India, I think that's a very important discussion every person should have with their attorney. That, okay, I am a citizen, but I am expecting inheritance, or before coming to US, I purchased assets in India, and how do I work on that? Most of the times, people are under this misconception that their US estate planning will cover their India assets. And it's incorrect. You don't want that to happen because anytime a foreign entity owns assets overseas, what happens? Double taxation, right? Because they're like, oh, this money is going to, every country is trying to stop money from going outside, right? So if you are liquidating any assets and you are kind of sending the money out, they will tax you more. Same thing would happen here. Same thing would happen in India. So it's very important that you have that OCI because OCI allows you to have certain rights which a foreigner doesn't have or a visa holder doesn't have. So just having that conversation and helping them understand that if you have assets in India, make sure you have an India will because you want the India laws to govern your Indian assets. You don't want to intermingle. You don't want IRS to have long arms in trying to reach your assets in India. So having that conversation is very important. The second thing which people kind of forget is even if they have business assets in India, if they are part of a limited liability partnership or a private limited or a public company, if they own above a certain percentage, they have to declare that wealth in their US taxes. It's a very important thing. You don't have to be a citizen to do that. Even today, even if you're on a visa, if you have a certain dollar amount above income overseas, you have to declare it. If you are partner or member or director of an overseas company, you have to declare it. If the money is coming from there to US, you have to declare. So there's some things people don't even understand. And they don't know, and they're like, okay, but how is it going to impact me? Well, it is going to impact your green card and it is going to impact your citizenship because now it's a financial crime, right? When you did not declare who is the beneficial owner of interest, then it becomes a big problem. So, yes, it's very important that people consult an attorney in India or somebody who has an India law knowledge so that they understand the nuances of anything they own or touch overseas, because how it impacts their taxes, how it impacts their inheritance, how it impacts the overall situation of how things goes and how they connect back to US is very important.